Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to our Game of Thrones. I would say Insta review, but we watched the last 15 minutes like 3 times.
True.
Because shit went like...
Damn.
Because there was some stuff that happened, and it's like, oh, and then there's, and then there's,
Okay, we're going to get to that. So...
Happy beer. Hashtag cold beer Sunday.
Beer Sunday.
3, 2, 1, go.
I already went.
And begin.
Spoilers. If you don't already know, spoilers.
We're a hot mess, by the way.
I'm an emotional wreck.
We are emotional hot wreck. And it was an hour and 25-minute episode. And we're going to try to talk about an hour and 25-minute episode in less than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Begin.
And begin. Okay, so this one was called The Dragon and the Wolf. If you didn't already know, it was the season finale. The intro did not change, so we don't have to talk about that.
Right.
Skip to the end. No. So we begin with the Unsullied lined up in front of King's Landing.
Yep.
And Jaime and Bronn on the not the turret, the
embattlement.
The embattlement. Having a conversation about cocks, as you do when there's a giant army
of cockless men in front of you.
Cockless men in front of you, and Bronn pointing out that, what do they have to fight for? And Jaime's like, well, gold, and he's like, most of the armies I've ever dealt with, they
spent their money on gold.
Spent their gold on things that involve their cocks.
Right.
And Jaime's like, I guess
it is all about the cock, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
So then the Dothraki show up, and they are much less uniform, much less disciplined than the Unsullied.
The Dothraki. I mean, that's kind of they're
right, but it was very obvious that the Unsullied are lined up in little units, little blocks, and very uniform, and then the Dothraki show up and they're all, what?
They are the wildlings south.
Yeah.
That's totally what they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Good. So then we go to, again, with this, like in the last episode, lots of jumping around, but not to 2 locations over and over again. We have a ghost. This was...
Our door just opened to our studio. My dog's face will pop up here eventually.
But to multiple locations.
Yeah.
Lots of jumping around.
Yeah.
So we go to Jon, Tyrion, and Davos, and they're on the ship showing up from their end. So you've got the Unsullied and the Dothraki on the land side of King's Landing,
right.
and Jon and Theron and Tyrion and Davos pulling up on the water side,
right.
on a ship,
with their mighty fleet of 5 ships.
Right, and Euron's entire fleet is sitting in the harbor.
Still want a Lego of that boat.
Yeah. And the Hound goes down into the hull and kind of jiggles the box to make sure that the undead
is still in there.
Is still alive, because you wouldn't want a dead undead. That would be an oxymoron. Tricky. Then we jump to inside King's Landing with Cersei. So Jaime and Bronn are up here. Cersei's in the hall with her maester, and I forgot his name, and the Mountain. And she basically looks at the Mountain and says, "Kill the silver-haired bitch first, then my brother, then my traitor brother, then the bastard."
The bastard they call king.
The bastard they call king,
yeah.
And then kill whoever you want after that. So, Brienne. So then, Bronn comes down the path. They're all going to the I don't remember what they call it. Was like the dragon arena.
Yeah, it was like a gladiatorial arena where they used to kind of do the whole
fighting with the dragons.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they kind of talk about it a little more later. But apparently, the years or whatever of keeping them in captivity made the dragons basically shrink down to the size of large dogs, and
Right.
killed them off.
Right.
So anyway, everybody's kind of converging on this location. So Bronn, Brienne, Podrick, and some soldiers all are coming down the path, and Tyrion, Jon, and Davos, and the Hound, and all their guys are walking up the path, and the Hound and Brienne get a chance to talk, and what I wanted to scream at the TV was to the Hound, like, tell her what Tormund said.
Right.
He didn't. That would have been so satisfying for him to have told, but he didn't. But what they did talk about was Arya, and Arya hated the Hound, and what they made it look like or seem like was that the Hound had captured her, was not on her side.
Right. Right.
But there was always kind of that question that maybe he was actually trying to protect her, and so you get to find that out.
Right. He was actually trying. He actually cared about her enough to.
Yeah.
And they made a comment that that Brienne was trying to protect the Stark girls, and
the Hound
said the same thing, but he's more specifically about Arya.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of a moment where they kind of looked at each other like, "Oh, okay, we are on the same team."
Same team, yeah.
It wasn't. It was a very subtle kind of. But it was important for the two of them to realize that we are on the same team. That we both care about Arya and the Stark girls.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, we're also going to this giant meeting that's going. So we are actually on the same team, even though they kind of showed up on different sides.
Yeah, and Arya, I mean, she thought she killed the Hound. She was trying to kill the Hound. The Hound was on her list. But you always wondered or kind of felt like, he really was trying to
he was actually trying to help her,
protect her.
Yeah.
And so now we know. Yay, we have that closure.
Hey, look, Collider's doing their live stream right now of Game of Thrones.
We're all doing it right now. Right now. So then we get, this is a little reminiscent of last week's, where everybody gets their little couple moments to have a little chat, maybe
work out the differences.
Closure, work out some differences. And so,
all of these conversations would be longer if it was longer than a 7-episode series. All of those closure moments would come, but they would come in larger doses.
Longer,
They'd be stretched out. There would be a little more conflict in that conversation, but eventually they would work it out. But there was only 7 episodes, so we had to go.
Right.
And I like that. So
So a lot of let's walk and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
So we get Tyrion and Bronn, who haven't seen each other in a while, and Tyrion's like telling Bronn, hey, I'll pay you double. I'll pay you double what they're paying you, and Bronn's kind of like, hey, it's not all about the money, even though it's
for Bronn, it's about. It's not necessarily about the money. It's about what he's getting.
Well,
lordship or castle or money or power or position or whatever. That's what it's about for him.
Right. Well, and so Tyrion tells him, "I'll pay you double," and he's like, "I'm bringing the heads of 2 traitors to Cersei. What do you think that's going to get me? That's going to get me a lot." And
adds tension to what's about to come.
Right. And then they're both kind of walking along, and Tyrion looks up and he's like, "I missed you," and Bronn's like, "I missed you too. I hate you, but I missed you. Go away. I got it. So the Hound, everybody except Cersei and Jaime are now in the Dragon's Arena, whatever. So Bronn has delivered his people. Tyrion, Jon, all them are there. They're all waiting on Cersei and Jaime, and ultimately Dany. But we'll get to that. So the Hound and Tyrion are having a little bit of a conversation, and the Hound says something about, I got out of the city because I thought I was going to die here, and he's like, and now I'm back, and I'm probably going to die here. And he's like, what is it about you Lannisters and Lannister cunts? What is he? Every time my life's in jeopardy, there's some Lannister cunt in behind it. And then Tyrion looks at him and he's like, yeah, and some Clegane? I can't ever pronounce their names. There to help him. And so there was a little bit of a, because they were smiling,
yeah,
you know,
and kind of a back and forth a little bit there.
Yeah, but
yeah,
there's a lot of we're about to die, so
yeah. So let's just get it all out there and let's go, because this is going to end badly,
right? So then Jaime and Cersei show up. You know, they're making a big to do about it because it's Cersei and she's got to let you know that she's
black power dress and
yep.
Yeah.
I am all that and a bag of chips and
with the mountain.
With the mountain, and so now the Hound has not seen the mountain.
Yeah.
Since he died, since both of them died. So the Hound walks up to the mountain and says, do you remember me?
Of course you do. The mountain never replies.
No.
Okay.
Well, no, he doesn't.
We're in this house. We're calling him Zombie Mountain because that's kind of what he is. But he never replies. But he says, do you remember me? And there's a pause, and the Hound says, of course you do.
You burned my face.
You burned my face, and kind of a. I know who you are, brother. You know who I am, brother.
You know what's coming.
You know what's coming, and that was the next thing. It was like, you know what's coming, kind of thing. And as ugly as I am, I don't look nearly as bad as you do.
Right.
That's brotherly love right there.
You fucked up this face, but damn, boy.
Damn, you're fucked. But they made a point of making that happen in front of everyone. Now, Dany's not there yet, but they made a point of the Hound gets up from his seat, walks through everything, walks right in front of Cersei. The mountain comes out. They make a point of having the two of them face each other.
Yeah.
And have that resolution. It's not really a resolution, but they make a point of it.
And he says, you know what's coming. So is that sowing a seed of doubt into the mountain?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean. From all this stuff that happens in the first, this is like the first 15 minutes of the episode. Yeah. For me, that was the biggest part, was the Hound kind of addressing the mountain, because the mountain, for at least Cersei, is the ultimate weapon. She's the only one that controls him, and I think that's going to be the downfall eventually.
But the Hound is a vessel, a profitor of the Lord of Light.
Yeah, so there's all this extra stuff going on now. Yeah. So there's that's a initial groundwork building for the next season.
Yeah.
That's for everything else. Now everything else that happens in this meeting is important for this season. I thought that was important for next season.
Yeah. So the Hound leaves, ultimately to get the box. And Dany makes an entrance. I knew this was what she was going to do when she wasn't there yet. And everybody was like, you were saying in the previews, Jaime and Cersei are there, and Jon is there, and Tyrion is there, but Brienne is there. So there's a there's representatives from each group, but Danny's not
there. And that was in the previews, yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, she's gonna make a fucking entrance
Yeah.
because I got dragons. And that's exactly what she did. She rode in on Dragon and rode all the way in, and you can see everybody kind of go. Jamie's like trying not to lose his shit because he has seen what these things can do.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, I need to go, and comes all the way, kind of climbs down the wall, and then shows kind of what I felt was he showed that she was his queen by moving
down,
over
like
so
squatting down, so she could step down.
Yeah,
not she had to climb down, but she could just step off of him and down.
Yeah,
and then he gets up and he flies off.
Yeah,
with the other one.
Right. Which Cersei
points out later.
Yeah. So let's see. So then Euron starts to just make a complete ass of himself before Tyrion gets up and starts to kind of make
the initial opening statements.
Yeah, right. Yes,
that's exactly what it was.
Exactly, and Euron's just being a dick, and he starts calling out Theon, and I got your sister, and I'm gonna kill her, and Theon's just window dressing. I'm not really even. I mean, that's the only reason he was there was for that
for that
scene.
Exchange.
What else is he there for? And then starts just talking a bunch of smack to Tyrion about, you're short and whatever. Easy jokes. And
Cersei tells him to sit down.
Jaime tells him,
yes,
you need to sit down or shut up or whatever. And he's like, who are you? And Cersei's like, you need to sit down and shut up.
And then the Mountain stepped up from behind there to kind of reinforce that statement. And he kind of like, okay, cool. Not like tail between his legs. But he was just like, okay, cool. I've done my part. And he goes back over and sits down.
Right. Well, we know later. Right. He's like, okay, whatever. So he goes and sits down. So then Tyrion, continues to kind of make his speech. Jon joins in. They both make a bit of a speech, and Cersei's really not having it. She's like, this undead stuff is all a bunch of hooey, and Tyrion's like, oh well, we brought something to show you, and so out of kind of the pit, this is very Colosseum, very reminiscent of the Colosseum.
It is a Colosseum.
Yeah,
it's ruins of a Colosseum, but it is a Colosseum.
But it's a dragon Colosseum, not a people Colosseum.
Right.
So out of kind of the basement or whatever, the Hound comes up with this box on his back, and he sets it down, and he takes the lid off, and now if the Hound is nervous,
he was like really gingerly undoing everything. He opens up the lid and he backs up.
Yeah, he kind of throws the lid off and backs up.
And he's like,
grabs his sword,
and everybody's like,
what is
going on? And Cersei and Jaime are like, this is a stupid presentation. What the hell is going on? Why are we having this conversation? And everybody else is freaking out.
Yeah.
And the Hound walks over and he kicks the box over.
Yeah.
And the undead that's in there dead sprints.
Runs out after Cersei.
Right at Cersei. Right at her face. And he has a chain around his neck. And right at the last minute, the Hound pulls him back. And he does the whole, whiplash back and stuff like that. And then he starts running at the Hound. And there's that point where the Hound pulls his sword out and he cuts the undead in half. And yet it's still moving.
The legs are moving over here, and the rest of the body's moving over here, and Cersei's just freaking out,
the hell out.
Jaime's freaking out.
Jaime stood up, got in a defensive stance and was ready to go.
Yeah,
and the magistrate stood up too, and the Mountain kind of stepped in front of Cersei, but you could see it in Cersei's face. She was very stoic for a minute, and then she was very freaked out for a minute, and then she was very stoic for a minute, and so it was this scene of confirmation.
Yeah, and kind of her reality all kind of running across her
Right,
face.
and she's done this multiple times in this series when Prince Boy jumps off the side. Tommen. When Tommen jumps off the side out of the building at the end of last season, there's a moment for her where she grieves. A moment where she grieves, and you can see it in her face. She grieves, she's sad, and then she nuts up and pretty much like, okay, I'm done grieving, and it moves on.
Yeah.
And she's done it multiple times, and this was just another example. I'm stoic, I'm awesome, I'm cool, I'm fucking freaking out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm cool.
Right.
Which is also important for later.
Right. So they somebody, I don't remember who it was, cut the hand off the undead. So now the hand's over here, the torso's over here, the legs are over here, and the magistrate comes over and picks up the hand, and he's like, "Don't let him pick that up. He's gonna make a bunch of fucking undead." And was it John?
John gets up with a torch.
With a torch, and he takes it from him.
And Dormon lights it.
Lights the torch.
Yeah.
And he looks. He's doing a science presentation for Cersei now. And he's like, "We can kill it with fire," and he lights it on fire, and now it stops doing this. And he's like, "And we can kill it with dragonglass," and he pulls out the dragonglass dagger and stabs the torso, and it stops. And so he's now made this is how we can kill it, and we need everybody to come.
If you're alive, you're on the army.
Right. If they get to you, or he mentioned, because he had asked Tyrion how many people were in King's Landing, and Tyrion said about 1 million.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you let the White Walkers get here, there's going to be 1 million undead, because Jaime had asked him how many, and John said
Danny said about 100,000. I've been north of the wall. I didn't understand until I saw there's about 100,000.
Yeah, and you see like this flash across Jaime's face of, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So
Jaime's the warrior, so he thinks of it. He thinks everything as the military guy, and so he's seeing there's a new threat. It's not Danny and John and this army. It's this army of the undead. 100,000 undead.
100,000. And, just to kind of go back to the beginning, to the opening scene, if there was, and I probably not even that, maybe 250 in each of those little
maybe
boxes of
I think the
Unsullied?
I think the Unsullied is maybe 10,000, and they've kind of randomly talked about numbers at times about force size and stuff like that. The Unsullied is like maybe 10 or 12,000. The Dothraki is probably another 10 or 15,000 at the most.
Right, and they're worried about that army.
And Jaime's talked about it multiple times. We don't have 10,000 people to go into this fight.
Yeah.
And there's a scene later where they talk about 20,000 mercenaries, and we'll probably cut it, maybe get to it real quick. But they talk about 20,000, and Jaime's freaking out like that's not enough. Like 20,000 of plus the Lannister army is not enough.
That's still not even half.
Right.
Of the undead.
Right. And that's kind of they don't really talk about numbers except for the mercenary unit and whatever.
Right.
But there's as soon as they say 100,000 plus, now everything's real.
Yeah. Jaime's we're fucked.
Yeah.
And Euron's like, so could they swim? And John's like, I don't think so. And he's like,
see ya.
Out. We're going to go back to our
Run
island
off.
And hang out there. And he looks at Daenerys and he's like, you should probably do the same thing. You're from an island. Dragonstone's an island too. So if the undead can't get there, we'll just all go back and wait this out there. And we'll clean up, we'll fight over what's left when the undead is finished. Not a great plan, because if there's 1 million in King's Landing, it's safe to assume there's probably 2 million total on Westeros, because King's Landing is the most populous.
Right.
And John even talks about that they don't
Why
have
would you
anywhere
even come
near
here?
that numbers in the north. So if there's 2 million total, and the Greyjoys and Daenerys and her armies or whatever are gonna come try to take over what's left. There's gonna be like over 2 million undead to try to fight. That's not a great plan. So Cersei says, okay, that was pretty terrifying, and you want a truce? I accept. Let's go get these people, or these not people anymore. And my only stipulation is that the King of the North go back to the North, not pick sides, stay there, and basically wait until this whole thing is over. Well, John, being John, I cannot tell a lie. He's like, well, I can't do that.
He's pure good.
Ding dong. It's like, I know, but he's like, I can't do that. I've already basically bent the knee to Dany, which is news to
everyone there else. But Dany. And Dany even was like surprised, like, oh, like you're gonna say this out loud to everybody, like, and like,
okay.
They showed Tyrion, and Tyrion's like, like, shut up. Okay, I'm surprised, yeah, but just shut up.
Stop talking. Stop talking.
I love Deveros's face too. Like, you did what? What?
She's hot. You know, it was a moment.
We're young. We're in love.
She's your aunt. So Cersei's like, well, then the truce is over, and good luck. See ya. We're gonna stay here. And
so her and Jaime and the Magistrate and the Mountain and their little entourage leave
the rest of them there, and everybody's just giving John shit. They're like, seriously, you couldn't lie once
for 5 minutes? You can't lie, you know, like. And I love the fact that he, like, I love this justification. Like, multiple times in this episode, he talked about if we go against our oaths, then what are those oaths worth, and why, and we will continue to build lies on lies on lies on lies on lies, and it doesn't get us anywhere. It's a weird place to draw the line, but he drew a line like here, and he said, we're not going past this anymore. Yeah. We need you to be with us so we can fight this army in the north, but this is the line. And so he may not mean to be playing the long game, but he was playing the long game.
Ultimately, yeah.
I mean, he was really worried about after the big war.
Yeah, you know, he's one of those guys where he's like, if I don't have my honor, then I don't have anything.
John's my dude. I love John. I mean, and
sometimes it's easy to lie over telling the truth is hard sometimes, right? And so it's easy.
And he obviously showed he hated telling the truth. It hurt him to tell the truth.
Yeah, I mean, he apologized a bunch.
And he apologized to everybody, but he was right.
Yeah,
and that was the thing, and for him, that he was right, and for everybody else, I know it was very difficult for them to all hear it, but he was right.
Yeah,
and that ultimately, that's what ended up being.
Yeah, and you know, and it's telling the truth to Cersei, who
doesn't want to hear any of that shit.
Yeah, she doesn't know what the truth looks like if it slapped her in the face, which it did, and she didn't. So now they've...
Well, it tried to slap her in the face, and I think she actually was genuinely scared. But it's Cersei, and she's playing a different game than everybody else.
Yeah.
So.
And you have to give it to her that she was able to change direction. This isn't real. What you're saying isn't real. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. Oh fuck, it's real. But here's my stipulations. Here's my agenda. She, like, on the fly, she still got, you know, that one thing has changed, but this is still where I'm going and what I'm doing.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah. So everybody's like, now what the fuck are we gonna do? And Tyrion's like, I'm gonna have to go talk to my sister. And Dany's like, I didn't make you my hand and bring you all the way back to King's Landing to have you die. And he's like, well, I don't want to die, but
I've got to do this.
This is what I got to do.
Yeah.
And again, it's if not closure, at least coming full circle back to he has not faced Cersei since he killed Daddy.
Right.
So
and that conversation, he walks in and the mountain goes with him, and there's a moment with him and Jaime where they have a moment of you're the idiot for being here and you're the idiot for following her, kind of that brotherly kind of like, you're being stupid, I still love you. And Jaime kind of saying, well, let's one idiot to another, I hope to see you again, this is goodbye. And he goes off into the room and the mountain follows him, and he goes in there and he does the whole, I mean, he lays out like he like pretty much just lays it out there like Tyrion might be the bravest person on the entire show.
Yeah, and we both said that. I'm like, he has got to be. He goes into the shitstorms every time
with zero obvious plan. He just makes it up on the fly as he goes in there. I mean, he went into the dragon's lair and took the chains off of them and petted them, which we all know is a sign of the dragons trusting him and stuff like that. And so he went in and he released the chains and petted them and stuff like that and released them and let them go, which helped Dany out, by the way. But now he's going into the other dragon's den with the fucking mountain behind him, zombie mountain.
Well, and he went and met with Jaime, and there's just, he has got some giant brass balls,
right,
over and over and over again. Yeah. So they hash it out. They're just back and forth, and there was a really good exchange, and a little, I was getting a little tear there because he's like, she blamed him for her kids. She's like, you killed my family, and he's like, I loved them, I loved your children, and he did. It wasn't, he never really felt like it was their fault, that mom was a bitch, but so ultimately at the end of all that, they hashed it out. She's like, I could just have you killed, right? So she kind of brings the mountain forward behind Tyrion, and he's like, basically dares her, do it.
He called her on her bluff, and like, and then made a point of insulting her to kind of force, even to force it more.
Yeah.
And she looked at the mountain and kind of, he pulled the sword out, like, just tell me the word. And she kept looking, and then she finally just like fine, like, you're right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what it came down to is, through everything, Tyrion is actually right.
Right, and for all the bravado that she has, all this false wall that she has put up, there's
still something in there about not killing off her family and making her family whole. And if she gives the order to the mountain, she's killing a member of her family, and everything that she hates about Tyrion for killing Dad and blaming her for her sons is just making her just like him, and she hates that.
Right.
And so there's that, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Right.
He takes a heavy sigh, walks over, pours a drink, downs it, pours another one, gives it to her, pours another one, sits down, and then they hash it out.
Right.
And am I okay to go on with this
Sure.
part? Okay. So they have this conversation about family.
Yeah.
And about how important it is to have a future. And she's talking about having a future of the Lannister line. And there isn't a future right now. And that she is worried about the future. And she never really thought that it was an issue until that thing came rushing out, and she didn't worry. She didn't see it as a threat until it opened its mouth at her, and she puts her hand on her belly.
Yep.
And she has this moment of like a pause, like she's like almost like having to think about what she's going to say next because she doesn't want to get overwhelmed with emotion.
Yeah.
And she's like, I only worry about where our future is going to be, and now I'm worried about, because that's the future if we don't do anything, and I'm worried about what's going on. And Tyrion says, "You're pregnant," and then they cut the scene.
He's like, "That's where you end the scene? Really? That's where you end the scene?"
So what? 3 episodes ago, she announces to Jaime that she's pregnant, and we thought it was just the long game play.
Yeah.
That's not a long game play.
Well, what happens later? She still could not. She could not be pregnant.
Not in that. The way they presented that scene, she came across as really honestly worrying about.
She's been pregnant 3 times before. She knows what it's like. She knows what buttons it pushes.
That's true.
And what
that's true.
Feelings it brings up in other people. And I think it's still iffy as to whether she's actually pregnant.
Yep.
Once. They made a point. They had sex once, and she got pregnant. That was pretty lucky.
Right. We go back to the.
So we go back out to the arena, right?
Right.
We cut and we go back out there, and Danny's really kind of giving Jon some shit about, you couldn't just not say anything, and
they're off in a corner like a dark cubbyhole by themselves.
Yeah.
And the camera is shooting from inside the cave out with the 2 of them on either side of the screen, and then the rest of the council, in the background.
Yeah.
Which I think is important because of how that scene kind of works out.
Okay. All right. He's like, nobody's more sorry than I, and at basically how it turned out, because it really looks like, this whole thing kind of fell apart, and it's my fault.
It was.
And and she's like, I appreciate what you did. It was stupid, but I appreciate the sentiment. And she's like, Tyrion's assessment was correct. And he's like, assessment? She's like, yeah, we're fucked. And then
the camera, the more they talked, the closer they got.
Oh, yeah.
So she was busy taking notes.
I was taking notes.
But I was watching it, so that's why I brought up the camera angle. So they're in this dark cubby in this the old gladiator arena, right? And they're not with anybody. It's the 2 most powerful people in that entourage, and nobody's around them. It's just the 2 of them talking.
Yeah.
And the more they talked, it wasn't super like here and then here and then here.
Yeah.
It was very subtle the whole time. It was very, very much where they were getting closer and closer. But then the camera was also panning in closer and closer too. So it was kind of a visual. They were having a different conversation. They were obviously flirting.
Well, yeah, because he came out and said, I'm bowing to her, and
right.
She was like, oh,
right.
Oh, he said it. He really likes me. Whatever.
They held hands in the last episode, so this was the next step.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to scream out, "Kiss her! Kiss her!"
Get it over with. So Tyrion comes out, and so Danny kind of turns around. She's looking hopeful, and then Cersei comes back out, and Cersei announces that I will not pull back my armies. I will join with the Dothraki and the Unsullied and the armies of the North against the undead.
We will march together towards the wall.
And then she says, how did she say it? I will fight. We will fight alongside, and I hope that you see my.
Remember that I didn't ask for anything.
Assurances
or anything.
Guarantees that anything was going to happen or come of it after the whole thing was over.
Right.
Which at that point, yes, you really do feel like she really is pregnant. She really has realized that the only way that her last child, who isn't even born yet, is going to survive.
Be able to survive and be on the Iron Throne one way or the other, kind of thing.
As if she does that.
Right. So the agreement has come that they are actually all going to join forces and they're going to go north and do everything. And I want to actually skip forward to what happens later when Jaime is talking. So Jaime's in the throne, in the map room. There's no other way of putting it. Room. And he's talking to all of the different commanders and saying, okay, we're going to go up the North Road and we're going to go up to the King's Road and we'll meet up at King's Winterfell and we'll do this. And Cersei walks in. She's like, you know, Sir Jaime, may I have a moment? And they kind of walk off. And she's like, you weren't paying attention at all to what Daddy was teaching you. And Jaime's like, I don't understand. Like, you just pledged your army to go north with everyone to defeat the undead. And she's like, you weren't paying attention at all. You were worried about the war stuff, and you never listened about talks about gold and all this other stuff. And she made a point of saying, I'm not sending my army north. That was just a giant ploy. It was just a position. And Jaime's like, we don't have the army to fight the undead, let alone to fight Daenerys and her army.
Right.
We just don't have it. And she said, well, you given us, is it Highgarden? The castle they took when they took all the gold out of it. I can't remember the name of it.
Highgarden.
Highgarden was such an important thing for us because we were able to pay for a mercenary army, and it's called the Gold Company, which is this infamous mercenary unit of 20,000 fighters and horses and elephants, I think.
Elephants.
It was one of the headlines. And Euron wasn't really running away. He was getting on the boat to go across the sea to pick them up, to bring them back. Right. And so Jaime and Cersei have this conversation about how you went behind my... Jaime's like, you went behind my back. And then she's like, well, you went behind my back to bring Tyrion here. And I've told you betrayed me. Yeah. I told you never betray me again. And the mountain's standing behind Jaime. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, here it comes. We're going to lose Jaime. I knew we were going to lose Jaime. It's going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. And Jaime calls Cersei on her bluff.
For the second time in this episode, her bluff gets called.
Right. And so Jaime's like, he doesn't say it. Well, yeah, he does. He says, I don't believe you anymore. Which is like multiple layers of everything. Yeah. I don't believe you're pregnant. I don't believe you're my queen. I don't believe that you're doing the right thing for the kingdom. It's like, I don't believe you anymore. And he turns around and walks off. And the mountain's still standing there with the sword pulled out, but he doesn't do anything because she didn't say anything. Yeah. And she kind of follows him out, and he leaves. He gets on his horse and fucking leaves.
Yep.
Which is what he should have done like 6 seasons ago.
But now, where does Jaime go? What does this mean, like, for the next season? Is he gonna go fight in the north? Is he?
How does he not go to the north and bring his military expertise to the north? How does he not go to Bran? It's gonna be weird with Bran. Bran's gonna try to frickin' sleep with Cersei, and he's gonna get Bronn. Bran is the other one. Bronn's gonna try to sleep with Cersei and carry Euron and stuff.
I don't know. Think
but
Bronn's like that,
but Jaime, they show Jaime riding out of King's Landing. He puts a glove on his gold hand, and it starts to snow.
Yep.
And he leaves.
Winter has come to King's Landing.
Winter has come to King's Landing, but that whole sequence of I'm taking my army, I'm giving you my army, I am agreeing to this, and then that whole thing, all of that is Cersei playing a game that nobody else is playing.
Right. But where's it going to
But it hasn't, and it makes no sense.
I think
she's only in it for her.
Right, which is probably going to be her downfall.
Right. At the hand of the mountain.
Maybe.
You've turned me into this. I've lost my brother. I've lost everything that makes me human. He's got to kill the magistrate, and then...
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, so...
Okay, so then we go to Winterfell. And Littlefinger is working his program. He's telling Sansa, John's single. He's a good-looking guy. Him and Dany are probably hooking up, and Arya, probably wants you dead. Actually, what he says, John was named the King of the North, and he can be unnamed the King of the North.
Right.
Planting that seed in Sansa's head that she could, basically turn the other lords of the North against Jon and become Queen of the North. And then he's got the Jon seed planted, that thing's going. Now he's going to work on the Arya seed, and he talks about this little game that he likes to play, what's the worst? And, he says, think about what's the worst thing that could happen if all this, plays out or whatever. And she's like, well, that she'd want me dead, and that she'd kill me and become the lady of
Winterfell.
Of Winterfell, yeah, right. Lady of the North. And at that, I actually put in my notes, I'm like, but Arya's had multiple chances to kill Sansa,
right?
And she hasn't done it,
right?
And so I'm like, okay, but you're still like, okay, Sansa's like, all right. So we'll jump to that one. So a couple seeds later, Sansa is standing out in the...
She's
in the
on the wall.
On the wall, yeah, in the courtyard.
And at Winterfell, looking out over essentially the valley, and it's snowing, and it's just her by herself, which is important for something that happens later on. And the shot is really cool because it pans from the side of her head, where you can pretty much only see her nose, to the camera kind of does this and comes to the front of her face. And you can see her seriously contemplating about what she wants to do next. And everything they've set up, everything that happened with all the scenes we had with Arya and Sansa last week, and Sansa and Littlefinger last week, last few weeks actually, looks like it's finally weighing on her.
Right.
And she walks off the wall, and there's a guard there, and she says, "Bring my sister to the meeting room." I can't remember what they called it.
Yeah, the Great Hall.
The Great Hall, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Great Hall. And so Arya walks in and kind of says, why am I here, or something. And
do you really want to do this?
Do you really want to do this?
Do you really want to do this?
And Sansa says, it's what honor demands. And so she says...
The room is lined in men in armor. And the military Maester. He's the one that wears the armor. I have never heard his name, or if I have, I've missed it.
Look it up.
But he's there too.
Right.
And it's Sansa and Bran.
Sansa and Bran are sitting at the big table, and Littlefinger's kind of over here in the corner, watching this whole thing with a smirk on his face, because Sansa's gonna, have her sister killed. And so Sansa says, you've committed murder, treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and she says, do you deny it? And she looks at Arya, and then everyone looks at Baelish.
At which point
what?
I jump up out of the couch. Yes!
We were right. Sansa and Arya were playing a game on Littlefinger.
The whole goddamn time.
There's no way that the two of them believe the bullshit that he's spouting.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
And he backpedals and tries, and he pleads. He plays all of his cards. He pleads with everybody, with Sansa, with the armor,
Maester,
the military maester, trying to get him to take him back.
He tries to lie. Bran calls him on his bullshit.
Yeah, he's like
uses
the
exact lining
and
like,
all. And Bran's like, I can see what happened, and I know. He's like, nobody was there, nobody knows, and Bran's like, I know. I saw.
I'm standing there like, yeah, Bran's sitting right there, like everything you're gonna say is gonna be bullshit.
Yep, you can say what you want.
So finally, he just starts pleading and crying.
Yeah,
he gets down on his knees and starts pleading and crying.
Yep.
And Arya's like, and Sansa's like the whole time, like he was like, I loved you, and she would say, you betrayed me by selling me off, and he's
I loved your mother.
I loved your mother. Oh yeah, you betrayed her. Like every time, like they had it worked out. Like every time he would bring something up, every angle that he would bring up, everything he would bring up, there was a reply to it, an answer from either Sansa or Bran or whatever.
You did this to my mother and her sister. You split them apart and tried to come between that, or came between that family, and now you're trying to do the same thing to us, to come between us.
Yes.
Split us up and get us against each other. And then Arya just walks over and slits his throat.
Just walks over like with the dagger, the dagger that Littlefinger gave Bran, and then Bran gave Arya. She pulls it out of the.
Was that the dagger?
Yeah, it was the dagger.
I thought it was.
No. It was that dagger, and she pulled it out and just. He's like in the middle of a sentence and just cuts his throat.
Yep.
And everybody just sits there and just like, fucker finally gets it, and we're like, yes.
Like we won the Super Bowl or something.
Oh my God, it's like a fucking football game in our house. And then I sat down as they're getting ready for the next scene, and I sit down. I'm like, they gave us Littlefinger. Who are we losing?
Yeah.
What's the cost?
Yes.
What's the cost for us?
Yes. Who's going to go that we don't want to go because we got somebody we did want to go. And all week, by the way, my husband has been texting me and telling me Littlefinger must die. Littlefinger must die.
He must die.
Littlefinger must die.
And the way he went, the way he went, it's not the way I wanted it, but it's actually probably better than the way I wanted it. I wanted him to go out with Sansa stabbing him, or Arya stabbing him, and then him turning around to kind of run off, and Sansa standing there with the dagger and jabs it in his heart.
Yeah,
and
but
that's the way I wanted it.
What they are.
But the way they did it, they publicly called him, and all the bullshit that he's caused, and all the shit that he's done, and everything he's done to ruin everybody's life at his profit, not necessarily about just his profit, in front of everybody, with no question, with no issue, and still kill him in the middle of a sentence, pleading for his life.
But that
was so gratifying.
I mean,
it's probably one of the.
They laid out what the three of them are. Sansa is the judge.
Yes.
And she is not the executioner.
Yes.
She is the judge.
Yes.
And Bran is, he is an
expert witness.
No. The Justice, the woman who's blindfolded.
Yeah, Justice. Yeah.
That's Bran.
Yeah.
And then Arya is the executioner.
Yeah.
And that's who they are.
Yeah.
And that's who they'll be. I mean, they're stronger together than apart.
So all that and I love the scene of Littlefinger just laying on the floor, and you just see the blood pooling, and he dies out. Bleeds out sitting there, and that's just, and everybody is standing around like, not going to his aid, not being there for him or anything. It was just a great symbolism.
Nope.
And there's a scene later on where Arya and Sansa are on the same wall where Sansa was early on.
Yeah.
And they're overlooking, and Sansa is not really having second thoughts, but she's having
She's just being reflective.
She's questioning if it was correct in a more trying to learn from the experience more than I
don't think she was questioning.
You don't think she was?
No.
I thought she was. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe
they were just because they were both talking very calmly, and she was just like, I think he loved me in his own way. And Arya's telling her, you did the right thing, and that she was the executioner. So
she really can't blame herself for him dying,
right? Because Arya's the one that actually killed him,
right?
And that you're the Lady of Winterfell, and so this, this is your job to be again the judge, the firm hand. Fair, firm hand, and this is your job. And Sansa told Arya, "You're the strongest person I know." And Arya's like, "I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." And Sansa's like, "You're still weird." And
yes,
they kind of had that little sister, you're still strange.
Yeah,
you kind of smell funny and. And then they talk about their dad, and they talk about Arya says, "In the winter we must protect ourselves," and Sansa says, "That was father." And then Sansa says, "The snow fall and the white wind blows, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives." And so
this is one of the scenes we watched like 3 or 4 times before we came in here.
Right. Does that mean that is Jon the lone wolf? Does he die so that everyone else
Does he die
lives?
to keep the pack alive? Now, I took it as the pack that's together right now with Bran, Arya, and Sansa are keeping themselves alive. And Jon's trying his best to keep everyone else alive.
I think it's a bigger picture.
It's probably a bigger picture.
I think the pack is all of Westeros.
Oh, see, I didn't go that far. I was more thinking of just the Starks.
If Jon dies, the pack survives.
Right.
If he is the lone wolf.
But he's... Are we there yet?
Well...
Are we there yet?
I mean, we can... So, we have two more scenes to talk about.
All right. Well, let's talk about that one.
And we're almost to an hour, so... So Sam shows up at Winterfell, finally. Why does time take so long when you want something to happen and it happens super fast when you don't? Anyway, so Sam finally shows up at Winterfell. Bran's there. Sam kind of walks in and he's like, Bran, do you remember me? I'm Sam. And he's like, of course I remember you. I remember everything. And Sam's kind of like,
look at you're the weird kid
weird.
now.
What does that mean? And
you're on the spectrum.
Because he doesn't know. And
right.
And Bran's like, and Bran says, "You're a good man," and Sam says, "I'm not sure I am." And that was.
It's Bran's lack of reply that I think is more important there.
Well, Bran is staring into the fire.
Yeah, and he doesn't
and
reply.
He's like, "Hi, it's Sam. Do you remember me or whatever?" And he's like, "I remember everything. You're a good man." And he's like, "I'm not sure I am." And
you
Bran
helped me get north of the wall.
No, he didn't. Yeah, but that was before. It was
just that scene. Yeah.
Scene. Yeah. Bran is looking in the fire and says, "You're a good man." And Sam says, "I don't think I am." And Bran's continuing to look in the fire, and there's a long pause.
Yeah.
That means something.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
They didn't go into it. And then he says, I became the three-eyed raven. And Sam's like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. I don't understand.
And he comes in and sits down. And so he kind of explains to him, I see everything that's happened. I see everything that's happening now. And he asks him, why did you come to Winterfell? And Sam says, because Jon leads the fight against the undead, and I've come to help him. And Bran says he needs to know the truth. And Sam's kind of like, what truth? And Bran says he isn't a bastard, and he's not my father's bastard. He's the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. And Sam's like, so apparently Sam was paying attention to Gilly when she was talking.
That conversation was going on.
And he was talking about pooping. Because he says, yeah, I read it, technically it was read to him, out of the Maester's diary.
Right.
And that Rhaegar actually got an annulment when he married Lyanna Stark. So he wasn't a bastard, because if Rhaegar had still been married, then that Jon would still be a bastard, just not Ned's bastard, but Rhaegar's bastard.
Right.
But he's not a bastard at all. Rhaegar got an annulment. He married Lyanna, and Bran was kind of like, "Is that true?" And Sam's like, "Well, can't you go see it?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah." And so Bran goes and watches the marriage of Rhaegar and Lyanna, and then he goes back to the castle or the keep that he had gone to last season with the three-eyed raven, where he saw Jon's birth and Lyanna's death, and hears Lyanna tell Rhaegar his name is Aengal. We played it a couple of times, and what we thought we heard was Aengal Targaryen.
Aengal Targaryen, yeah.
And Rhaegar is Daenerys' brother, so the whole Daenerys is Jon's aunt.
Right.
Meanwhile, back and forth.
While this whole scene's going on, there's this cutaway to Jon and Dany on the boat going north, so they can get the fastest way north is via the boat.
Right.
And Dany decides to go on the boat instead of actually taking the dragons and flying north. She decides to go on the boat to go north because she wants some alone time with Jon. And so as they're going through the whole scene with Sam and Bran about, trying to explain Aengal Targaryen's birthright, essentially,
yeah.
The two of them will fucking hook it up on the boat.
Jon's knocked on the door. She opens the door.
Open the door, lets him in. They're making out. There's a pause when Bran says, there's a pause. This is like the weirdest pause in a sex scene. And there's no other way of saying it, so I'm just going to say it the way it happened. Jon is on top, pauses, and has a loving look at Dany. And Dany has a loving look at her, at Jon. Sorry. And Bran says, Jon is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And then they continue on with the sex scene.
Yeah.
And it's not a sex scene for a sex scene. It's like we actually have feelings for each other,
yes.
Passion, caring,
yes,
love-making kind of scene.
Yeah. It's
not a, down and dirty kind of whatever sex scenes like
right.
we've had in this show. This was a I love you sex scene.
Right. Meanwhile,
in the middle of it, oh, by the way, we're explaining to everybody in the planet and Sam that Jon Aengal is the heir to the throne and not Dany.
And Dany's nephew. And off in the corner,
in the hallway,
being that guy, creeper guy, Tyrion has this lovesick, sad, jealous,
yeah,
look on his face.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. We watched it 3 times. The last 15 minutes 3 times to make sure we got everything we understood. So Jon and Dany are related. Sam knows.
And Bran knows.
Bran
finally fucking told somebody.
And Bran actually said to Sam, we need to tell Jon.
Yeah. We need to tell Jon.
So that will be like episode 2 next season. We have Jon is the rightful heir, not Dany.
Right. But they're hooking up, so they
But
can
they're hooking up.
reign together.
They can reign together. He is the king of the north, and she is the queen of everything that Cersei doesn't currently control.
They'll get rid of her.
And you have Tyrion, who just spent time with his sister, talking about how they need to keep their family together, being a lovesick puppy in the hallway.
I think as soon as Tyrion finds out that Cersei, like, double crossed him, he's gonna be like, that bitch is out.
Triple. He even said in that scene that I can't tell you how many times I've thought about killing you.
Yeah.
So there's 7 layers of shit that's gonna happen in 8 minutes of the last 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it all has to do with Jon, Dany, the Iron Throne, Tyrion, his reaction to everything that's going to happen. Oh, by the way, he does actually love Dany.
Right. And Bran and Sam.
And Bran and Sam. Fuck you. And we're not to the end yet.
And wow, I don't know what that was. And then the end. So Bran is staring into the fire. I think he's staring into the fire.
He's at the tree.
He's at the tree again. Yeah. And he wargs ravens. A couple episodes ago, we need ravens. He wargs into the ravens. Ravens fly over the wall. Tormund and, I forgot to get his name. The guy with the eye patch. I can't remember his name.
From the Brothers Without Banners.
Brothers Without Banners guy. The one that's also died. The two of them are standing at the wall at Eastwatch and kind of looking out, and all of a sudden
White Walkers start showing up on horses.
Yep, and the undead.
And then the undead walk in behind them. And it was kind of like each of the White Walkers were in charge of their own unit.
Right.
That's totally how it looked, like at the wall.
Well, and they kind of established last week that they probably are in charge of, or whatever, of the ones that they turned,
right,
maybe.
Right.
Or at least, if one dies, they die, so they're all connected that way or whatever. So then it was very interesting because you see the look of, oh shit, on Tormund's face.
Yes.
But then they show it from down below, with the White Walkers, the undead, and you're looking up and this wall is massive. Now, they've shown this before, but it was just still kind of a perspective. The wall is massive, and yes, there's 100,000
thousands of feet tall.
Yeah.
It's what it looks like, thousands of feet tall.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
And there's 100,000 of them, but unless they're all going to get on each other's backs, they're never getting up there.
Right.
And then
you hear, Wah! And there's this shot where something flies across the screen in front of Tormund and blah blah blah, one-eyed dude, and the Tormund's like standing there, like what the hell was that? And then they pan down, they see everybody, right, and they see the entire army's there, all the White Walkers are there, every of the undead is there, and then they pan up again, and the dragon comes around the corner with holes in its wings and stuff like that.
Yep, it's all
undead, and it starts flying forward, and they pan in closer, and the Night King is on it. Or they call it the White King, Night King.
The Night King.
The Night King. That's right. The Night King is riding the dragon.
Yep, like Dany does. And the dragon swoops in. Now, all the talk on the internet is the last few days has been, you have an undead dragon. Is it going to fire ice? Is it going to fire fire? What's it going to do? Yeah.
And it flies in and spits out blue flame and hits this section of the wall. And Tormund and she's looking up the name. Like Tormund turns around and just tells everybody to run, not get ready for the fight or anything like that. Like run, and they all start running from the top of the wall. They have to go from the top of the wall all the way down and out, and it's just there's just screaming, and yelling, and running and everything like that. And the dragon comes back around and starts blowing a hole into is it Beric?
I think it's Beric.
Beric. Yeah. Okay, so Tormund and Beric are running now down the giant ladder thing, whatever. And the dragon comes down and kind of stops and starts blowing a hole and melting the ice of the wall. Not destroying it, but melting it with a blue flame. It's a fucking blue flame.
Right. But because it's blue, it can't kill the undead and the White Walkers, I guess.
I mean, it wasn't shooting at that, so I don't know. I mean, it's...
But, I mean, he's on their side.
Right,
so...
Right. So, the dragon essentially destroys Eastwatch.
Yep.
And the wall.
Yep.
And now all of
that whole section
of Eastwatch is gone. It's completely gone. Did Tormund and Beric make it? They never really show them not making it. But there's a shot where they're running along and they stop and they're trying to help the guys behind them in the run. And your battery's at 10%. And because we've been going that long.
I know.
They stop to kind of help the guys, and the wall behind them the walkway behind them goes, and they stand there, and they are kind of like I don't know what to do. And then the next shot is they pan back, and the whole wall just disintegrates.
That's what it was.
Oh, did you spill
Luckily
beer all
it was
over?
empty.
Okay. And the whole wall disintegrates, and so they don't show Tormund and Beric dying, but I don't know how they survive unless they're at a different spot.
Tormund has to live. Him and Brianna have to have giant babies.
They gave us Littlefinger. You know they were gonna give us something.
They have to have giant babies.
Jon came back. So that was the season finale. So we got all of the layers with Dany and Jon and Sam and Bran knowing all what's going to happen. The undead with a fucking dragon are now on the south side of the wall. And we have...
And Bran knows. Because he warged in, so he saw the whole thing.
So he's going to be able to see it. So he's going to be able to warn everybody once they get to Winterfell. It's not like they're moving very fast. That's not like the undead are moving very fast. So they might have enough time to get together at Winterfell. But Winterfell's going to die. Winterfell is going to fall. It's going to fall. There's no way that they can defend. We talked about it in the opening. It's so small. Compared to everything else in the map, Winterfell is so small.
Yeah.
And so there's no defensible spot there. They're going to have to go further south to set up. And I think what's going to end up happening is Dany and Jon are going to and Jaime's going to show up. Jaime's going to say this is a good defensible location. We're going to draw the line here. This is where our line is. We have at least two dragons. We have some air-to-air combat going on. We'll have the ground forces going on, and then fucking Cersei's going to show up with an army of the Gold Company and try to outflank everybody.
Right.
That's where we're going.
Yep.
And there's 6 episodes next season, and they're all like an hour and a half. So crazy. So any last thoughts? Just crazy episode. Really, really good.
It's 9:05, and we're gonna go watch it again.
Yes.
I've so much. We'll go listen to what other people think of it tomorrow.
Some people complained online about the shortness of the season, that they were kind of time jumping a little bit and doing some other things. The series has been set up to allow them in season 7 to do kind of some of those time jumps.
Yeah, I mean the series has come to more of an abrupt end than I think they probably would have wanted, because George R. Martin has not finished the last 2 books. He has not.
So they're doing
even started the last 2 books, as far as we know. I mean, the last 2 books should have happened to follow these last couple of seasons,
right?
And they haven't. So they've been forced to kind of wrap it up on their own. A little bit of an outline, I guess, from him. So whatever. I don't know. Whose fault is that? George R. R. Martin's? Stop going to cons and write books.
I'm not going to blame him. When they started this, I don't think they expected it to be this. When they had the first season,
right?
Of
It's easy
Game
to
of
write.
Thrones,
Like I said, it's easy to write books when you're not going to cons all the time.
Even when HBO picked it up, I don't think they expected it to be this.
Probably not.
But it's turned into. I've talked about this before. It's Breaking Bad. It's Sopranos. It's Seinfeld. It's MASH. It's that level of television.
It is MASH. We were at our other thing that we do, our medieval event today, and at the end we were wrapping it up, and during, we hold court, and during court, the king said, we need to move this along because there's this thing happening, and it goes da na 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 na. We're all like, yes, we have to go home and watch Game of Thrones. So that's what, like, you go to work in the morning and everybody's, did you see Game of Thrones last night?
They'll be talking about it on the radio. It's that level of show where it's that big. It's that big of a show where everyone is talking about it, even if they're not regular watchers of it. Yeah. And people are pissed if you put spoilers online or whatever. It's a huge, gigantic, well appreciated show. People do complain about stuff, but they complain out of love for what they've seen and what's happened, and not because of it's a stupid show or whatever. If it's a stupid show, nobody would talk about it.
Right.
And that's part of the problem why when they started this thing, they didn't know where they were going with it. Yeah. And now they're at this point where we have this huge following, and there's freaking pops and T-shirts and internet shows talking about the episodes and stuff like that. So it's a huge thing. So really good season. Really, really happy with it. Now we wait a year and a half.
I heard a year. I heard this time next year.
I would take that. I waited 19 months for a new Doctor Who episode. So I'm okay with that.
Right.
So what do you guys think of this season? What do you think of this episode, this finale called The Dragon and the Wolf? Mm-hmm. Is that what you say? The Dragon and the Wolf. Please let us know what you thought of the episode of Game of Thrones and our rundown reaction of the episode. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and we tried to get through it as best we could and get all the highlights and lowlights. Please like this video. Please leave us a comment of what you thought. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've been talking a lot.
YouTube channel.
I've been talking a lot for the last 2 days, and I'm running out of gas. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Haha. You can also get a hold of us on Facebook. We're at the Pop Culture Cult. We're PopCultureCult1 on Instagram, and we're at Pop_Cult1 on the Twitters. We also have a partnership with the Stardust App. It'll give us it's an app that you can download, set up your account. It's completely 100% free, and you could do little 30-second reactions and to everything you're watching, TV shows, movies, the Mayweather-McGregor fight. There was a bunch of reactions on that this weekend too. Pretty much anything you're watching, you can do little 30-second reaction and reviews. We're going to do ours right now. So please download the Stardust app and like the Pop Culture Cult first, and then go like all your friends and all of our friends. Anything else?
No.
That was a lot. I'm not sorry we went long. And I'm sure we missed stuff. And so until next time, good night now.